people say they help, but they don't help.
Mm.
People love to look the other way. And this is realism for me. This isn't an exaggeration. This isn't a hyper reality.
Well, I was a huge fan of this movie. I thought you guys made such cool creative decisions. So I was super excited to be able to ask you about them. I wanted to start off first by asking you about that door scene about 20 minutes in when she goes in. She thinks everything's going to be fine. And then about a minute or two later, she comes out, completely different vibe, completely different mood. Why did you decide to do that kind of reveal?
For me, it was all about what you don't show, right? And as a survivor myself, was I going to shoot a rape scene? It didn't feel authentic to me. That's not something that I needed to direct or see. And I wanted Pilou to control the camera because that's how powerful he is. He was going to dictate what we saw in this movie. And there were things that he didn't want us to see because that's where he was going to be his true self, was when, the camera was away from him, he could be his true evil self. And so when I was thinking of this kind of super villain, I thought, how terrifying if he even controls what we can see in this movie, like so many powerful men do. What happens behind closed doors is often where they are their true self.
I was going to ask you about that as well, because there are a few instances where we see him holding the camera. But then at the end of the movie, we see her kind of take the camera into her own hands. What was I'm sure there were a few, but what was the main message behind that for both of you?
Well, for me, it was all about the lens in which we were watching the film. He was trying to narrate his story. He was trying to control the narrative. And at the end, I really wanted it to be Cherie's story. And that's why she reclaims the camera, and she, it's her narrative that we're truly following, and it's her ending that she earned, and she got there through all this kind of terror and horror that we've seen before. She reclaims the camera, and she has the power in the end.
Yeah. And I just want to high five what Shana is saying, because what I really loved about this, and this is like, I'm going to take us in a little bit of a different direction, but maybe you've heard about the guy in Missouri who was only kidnapping Black women and putting them in his basement and murdering them. And there were rumors and people were like, hey, I think there's a serial killer that's actually coming out and blah, blah, blah. And nobody believed, right? Yeah. He was arrested. Nobody believed it. Nothing happened until one woman got out and escaped. Right. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, it's about her and her. Do you know what I'm saying? So what I really loved about it is that, like, this isn't something that's just like, oh, something that's completely imaginary and made up. What I loved about it, that it was really based off of what is actually happening now. And we're being able to show that in a genre film. But like, even just talking about how a lot of Indigenous women are being, we don't know what's actually happening to them. They're being disappeared. But the narrative is like, there really isn't one, because they don't really want us to be able to look at that closely. So like, who's controlling the narrative, I think, is really important. And that's one thing I really responded to when I was, becoming a part of the movie. Did that get a little too deep for you, Rachel? I'm sorry.
No. I was like,
that's exactly about a real murderer. Huh?
That's what I had in mind. Exactly. I'm going to take credit.
Well, yeah, there were so many. this was a really, obviously parts of it was supernatural, but there was a lot of realness to the story. Just the way that, after she is abused, she's immediately taken in and for public intoxication. So was that all part of it as well? You just wanted to, get this message out there and help tell the story?
Yeah, I think there's a general distrust of women, and what their truth. And, even in that scene, after she is trying to get anybody to help, which was based on a real life experience for me after I was assaulted, and it was 6 p.m. in Los Angeles, and I ran blocks begging for help, and no one helped me until I finally had to go to a high school that was in session for night school and write what happened to me on the chalkboard. People say they help, but they don't help. People love to look the other way. And this is realism for me. This isn't an exaggeration. This isn't a hyper reality. And when she goes even to those two white girls outside the movie theater, I intentionally kept Ella out of focus, because they still don't see her. They still don't even trust her. And the focus is actually on the back of these two white women's heads. And I put her very small in the frame, relegated almost to the side. And yeah, that's reality, sadly.
I am gonna have to wrap, but
geez, like let us end on like a really fun note.
No, I love it. We're like, and there you go.
Trust me, I have plenty of questions. But thank you guys so much for chatting with me again. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Awesome. Go watch the movie. Okay, great.
Yeah. Have a good one.